Welcome to Worldwise Studio, where the world's biggest ideas become surprisingly simple.
Look at the sheer physical scale of the built world around us. Modern cities are sprawling, complex grids of concrete and glass that seem to assemble themselves outward in every direction. But right next to those booming centers, we have dead zones. Abandoned shopping malls and decaying corridors sit entirely empty. Why do some blocks thrive with energy, while others simply glitch out and die? The instinct is to credit or blame architects and urban planners. We assume the people who sketch the buildings are the ones dictating the shape of our environment. The reality is that the physical world is authored by dead politicians, obscure municipal clerks, and massive, intimidating stacks of unread paperwork. If you want to understand why a city looks the way it does, you have to read its source code. Historical land acts, municipal tax laws, and zoning ordinances are the invisible forces shaping our reality. To figure out why we live, work, and learn exactly where we do, we have to trace our physical surroundings backward to the obscure legal clauses that force them to exist in the first place. Take a look at the massive, classical university campuses spread out across the United States. You will often find these highly developed academic hubs sitting right in the middle of vast, untouched agricultural regions. This entire network of educational institutions owes its existence to a single piece of legislation passed in 1862, the Morrill Act. This handwritten document is a land script for the state of Ohio, issued as a direct result of that act. The legislation dictated a specific mathematical formula. It granted exactly 30,000 acres of non-mineral public land to a state for every senator and representative it had in Congress. Section 4 of the act came with a strict mandate. The states had to sell this land script and invest the money into a perpetual fund. The code explicitly ruled that the capital of this fund must remain forever undiminished. The law went one step further. It required that the interest from this fund yield at least 5%, and that money had to be used specifically to teach agriculture, mechanic arts, and military tactics. A single bureaucratic mandate, using public land as a financial instrument, physically spawned a nationwide network of specialized campuses. The physical layout of American higher education was engineered by a land-grant formula. Fast forward to the modern era. In almost every North American city, there is a rigid, highly visible boundary between the neighborhoods where people sleep and the districts where they work or buy groceries. That strict separation is the direct result of a legal framework invented in the early 20th century called Euclidean zoning. Local governments use Euclidean zoning to control three distinct variables of physical development. They categorize every parcel of land by its acceptable use, its intensity, and its bulk, forcing a mixed city into isolated categories. The bulk variable is enforced through strict mathematics. The code dictates the maximum floor area ratio, how much building you can put on a lot, and requires mandatory minimum setbacks, placing invisible, legal barriers between a building and the street. The original intent here was public health. Early city planners wanted to quarantine toxic industrial factories and heavy pollution away from residential homes. This black and white aerial shows the physical reality of that math. By legally separating every function of daily life and mandating wide setbacks between structures, the code accidentally forced massive urban sprawl and mandated a lifestyle completely dependent on the automobile. Zoning laws acted as a slow-motion spatial weapon. They dismantled naturally walkable cities and replaced them with isolated grids where driving is mandatory. Then you see a bustling, tree-lined street like this, where people are moving seamlessly between cafes, sidewalks, and public squares. How do we get back to this kind of environment? You don't get there by hoping a developer builds it out of the kindness of their heart. You get there through a modern legal patch designed specifically to fix Euclidean sprawl, known as form-based codes. Form-based codes flip the core logic of urban planning. Instead of strictly regulating what a building is used for, they strictly regulate its physical form and how it interacts with the street. This is a schematic from a form-based code. Notice the specific numbered elements. The code explicitly dictates build-to lines, public space standards, and exact storefront designs, legally requiring certain architectural features to frame the public realm. Instead of prioritizing the isolation of a private lot, form-based codes prioritize the visual harmony of the public sidewalk. The code forces the building to provide shade, windows, and welcoming entrances for pedestrians at the ground floor. We have real-world proof of this code in action. This is an aerial view of Seaside, Florida. The tightly integrated building forms and the highly social central green exist precisely because the local code demanded this exact configuration. Form-based codes prove that vibrant social communities do not happen by accident. They can be artificially engineered, but only if the legal text demands it. Whether we are looking at a 19th century land grant or a modern zoning overlay, the lesson is the same. Paper legislation acts as a literal, physical blueprint for society. Legal text is a spatial weapon. An obscure clause about parking minimums or building heights will dictate the shape of your neighborhood long after the author is gone. Facing modern crises of livable space and massive commute times, we cannot rely solely on better architects or wishful thinking to fix our cities. If we actually want to change our physical world, we have to endure the bureaucracy, master the paperwork, and rewrite the code itself.